The following is a presentation of Morning Drive Media.
From the southernmost point of dawn to the lands of always winter, and what is west of west and the shadows in the east, this is Casterly Talk. Our GOT Rewatch continues. We are deep into Season 2. Oh, it's one of my favorite years. It's one of my favorite seasons. And when you go back and kind of dive in, beat by beat, scene by scene, you are rewarded. Just great performances, great dialogue, great moments. And yes, I'll even say great pacing. And I know the show's pacing picked up, much to the chagrin of many, but I am one that understands why the pacing picked up. But man, do I love to slow down in Season 2. I am not alone today. About to make his debut on the show here is someone who used to call in to Daily Thrones and contributes to Casterly Talk with some great calls. He has some great insights. A great broadcast voice. So happy to bring him in here now, making his debut on Casterly Talk. Not just in it, but on it is Mark Kmeyer. Some of you might know him from the Feeding the Monster podcast feed and other things he's done. Mark, welcome to the show.
What an introduction. Now, do I live up to the standard or do I fail miserably? I'm just happy to be here. Happy to join you, Ken, and talk Game of Thrones.
This is going to be fun, man. Without a doubt, man, your calls, you were one of the first regular callers, Eric Monroe, Thomas Rissling, a lot of great people. I had a lot of names recently, Billy, Addie, Donald Long, and names in the past. But some of your calls early on just got my attention. You know how to communicate well, and that's why I love bringing you voices like you into the show. So before we dive in, I want to go a little bit more about your relationship to Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, where it began. The big old question: book first, show first, all at the same time. Did you study the maps before you knew the show? How did you get into Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones?
Well, stop me if you've heard this one, Ken. It was after I watched season 1, I thought to myself, you know what? I need more. And I immediately went out and got the books. I remember as soon as episode 10, Blood of Fire and Blood of season 1 ended, I was watching it with my folks, actually, which is weird thinking about it now, but whatever. And I looked over to my mom, who's like a huge book reader. And I said, so we're getting these books, right? Like, we're going to get them? And she said, yeah, I think we should. And we got them, and I picked up right at A Game of Thrones, and I just kept going because I needed more, Ken.
Yeah. Look, I'm right there with you, and I love it. We value all entry points into Game of Thrones. This is a rewatch right now that is focused on the show more than anything, but we always say the books inform it. And yeah, I'm like you, just like needed more. I tried so hard to pace myself. I was like season book, and I've told that story before here, listeners know, but it just got so hard after a while. Just like, and then with that debate, should I put the books on the shelf and wait till the show's finished? And it's like, no, of course not. They exist almost in separate parallel universes, but they're also intertwined completely there. So, all right. Another thing too, I've been talking about with Michelle and Rachel, your relationship to season 2. Especially coming out of just an amazing first season, which is still, I'll call it perfection in its own beautiful lower budget way. You got the books, you got the world just swirling around your head. And you go to season 2. What were your expectations? What were your thoughts on season 2 then, all the way back in 2012, compared to now and over the years?
Well, since I read A Clash of Kings, which is book 2, before season 2 hit, my only thing was I have no idea how they're going to pull off A, then B, then C, and what the hell is D going to look like? So my expectation was high because they set the bar so high with season 1. They really did.
Yeah.
And having read A Clash of Kings, I go, I don't know how they're going to pull this off. And lo and behold, of course they did. Of course they did. I will say one thing that threw me about season 2 was there is and maybe this is just a technical thing, but there was a palette change in the cinematography. I don't know if you ever go back, if you notice this in the rewatch of season 1, but there was sort of this sort of shiny, glossy palette in the filming. as soon as we start season 2, that's gone. And so at first that bothered me, but then I realized, no, you know what? They got rid of the glam, so now it's a little gritty. It looks a little more like Westeros is real. It like this actually now this doesn't feel like we're obviously in a fantasy realm. This feels real. We're in it. So as soon as I got that out of my head, I went, "Oh, okay, cool. I hope they continue this." And as far as I can tell, they did.
Yeah, and then look, and you can kind of tell. It's like, years ago I used to work in a mall, and you could blindfold me and put me into a corridor, and believe it or not, I could pick it out by the smell. All right, not saying that's a great thing, but I was there so long. You could just show me a shot and be like, oh, season 5, season 6, season 7, season 8, season 1, like you're saying. I think a lot of us know what you're talking about, and I agree. Yeah, season 1, the budget lower, of course, the pilot that we see, Tyrion's wig, all those, everything kind of. Just got better and they adapted. And I agree. I think you by the time that opening scene of season 2, Tyrion showing up on Joffrey's name day and everything, it had a different feel, a different look to it. And I think that's a great thing for you to point out there. All right, let's dive into themes and lessons, favorite scenes and quotes. We are looking at, of course, season 2, episode 4, which is the 14th episode overall, Garden of Bones. I love that title. Original air date, April 22nd, 2012. Oh, it seems like yesterday. Do you remember what you were doing when you watched the Garden of Bones episode for the first time, Mark?
I was in college, so it was that was my Sunday thing. And believe it or not, kids, there was a time where not everyone in the world was watching Game of Thrones. That didn't really happen, I think, until season 3, when people started picking up, or maybe even season 2. Let's say 2 for the sake of argument. But that's what I would do. Yeah. And I had my social media ready to just talk about my thoughts on the episode and then yell at everybody, why aren't you watching the show? It's great. And now I could kick myself for doing that, but it's fine. It's fine. No, I love it. And yeah, I remember I was sitting in my living room at the house and homework be damned, watching Game of Thrones.
Love that. Yeah, I wasn't quite in college myself, but you're so right too. As the ratings started to climb, I mean, people around me were watching, but I think by the end of season 2, but I'll say season 3, the anticipation for it, that was the first party I had for a premiere party. Had people at the house, without it, the show's popular. But again, we always say HBO would renew it at the end of, there was still like, is the show going to get another season? Which was think silly, and the awards were starting to come in, and the episode today we're covering is an award-winning episode specifically. But yeah, you're right. It wasn't until season 3 where then you can walk into Hot Topic and see it everywhere.
Hot Topic, Spencer's Gifts, like you name it. It's Game of Thrones is everywhere now.
None of these are sponsors, of course, but Box Lunch is actually one of my favorite little stores. You go in and it's just oh good, I do need a Tyrion notebook. The director of this episode, I always mess up some of these names. It's just me. It's not them. It's David Petrarca. I want to say
sure.
Like the city of Petra, and then add an RCA on the end of it. So here he is, David, as we'll call him. He's not known, and this has been fun. When I say not known, there's a lot of directors from Game of Thrones: Alan Taylor, Neil Marshall, Miguel Sapochnik. Michael, that was a weird switch. Miguel Sapochnik, who's now, of course, one of the showrunners on House of the Dragon. They go on to great acclaim. Michelle McLaren almost got Wonder Woman. That fell apart before Patty Jenkins came aboard. This is a director, many directors in these. I looked at the names either now or on the rewatch I'm doing with Grace, which were a little bit ahead. And it's like, oh, I didn't even know. I did like DB Weiss directed one. You forget. David was a HBO kind of an in-house director almost. And I'm just saying, Boardwalk Empire, Game of Thrones, Big Love, Hung, True Blood, as well as Marco Polo. He had a lot of those kind of big budget, kind of high concept HBO shows.
The HBO keeps a lot of those usual suspect director sort of players just in their wheelhouse in case, hey, we have a show, do an episode and see what happens. I've noticed that a lot. Tim Van Patten's another one. David Nutter, he shows up David Nutter shows up everywhere. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and they do that. I mean, HBO does that a lot with the actors too. You'll see them. And
yes,
the Rome connection, Kieran Hines or Indira Varma. Yeah, and it works for them, and I do kind of like it. The writer of this episode was Vanessa Taylor, and speaking of names who don't get generally associated with Game of Thrones now, when you go back to some of the bigger writers or names, and we were talking off air, Mark. Yeah, I'll admit I haven't really clicked on her name, and there she is. She co-writes The Shape of Water, which was nominated for an Academy Award. So she puts a great episode out here for Game of Thrones. I love the writing in this episode. And
yeah,
Taylor there at the pen.
I just it's so funny that the writing in this episode is so great. That same person would go on to write a fish love story and win Best Picture.
It's all about love, and there's some love in this episode. Cinematographer Martin Kenzie, editing Katie Weiland. Another great job from her. So diving in, Mark, themes, lessons. I got a few, but I'd love to have you kind of lead off this ball game with some of the themes and lessons you pulled out or just were pulled into while watching this episode.
The thing that struck out to me the most was, and I don't even know if you would call it a solid theme, but this is what I gathered from it. War is hell, and it is not pretty nor clean. And we see several examples of this mindset throughout the show on two different spectrums. And then really, if you break it down, we are in the nitty gritty. We're getting neck deep into the War of Five Kings or 4 right now. But it's this episode, I think, is showing us this is what it's like in the daily life of being at war, and everyone's at war with one another. And so this is it's sometimes you have to really harsh decisions that aren't popular, that aren't clean, as it were, in order to get the result that you need.
This is a great thing here. I wrote down the idea of the realities of war, and I love how that kind of leads a little bit. We're starting to go down the Robb Stark defeat path, which begins way before we kind of want it to or pay attention to. But we get to see him. Yes, he meets Talisa in this episode and falls in love with her as she saws off a guy's name, which is to me like Almost Famous when Patrick Fugic's character falls in love with Kate Hudson as she's ODing, and the hotel nurses and doctors are sticking a tube down her throat, and the song is like, oh, I love it.
Rob stomach bump,
stomach bump, and Rob Stark's watching Talisa with a saw cutting off a Lannister. Like, that's that works. But this is go ahead.
I was just like, I just called this moment the first temptation of Rob.
It's beautiful, and it is, and this leads to things, and we're obviously going to be talking about some of the foreshadowing and things of more meaning here. But so that's the highlight of the scene is Talisa. But I think the real big focus that and that's obviously big storyline. But Roose Bolton, we get to really spend time with Roose here. Not happy with prisoners, as said. And to your point, to back up what you said, this is why it's a great theme to dive into and lesson. Maybe even except more lesson than theme. But Roose Bolton has this quote: "The high road is very pretty, but you have a hard time marching your army down it." Then later in the episode, when my man Stannis and Davos are talking about what maybe he wants Davos to do with Melisandre and Renly, he says, "Cleaner ways don't win wars." So exactly to your point, the realities of war are really on display here in this show about war.
And they both do it. They both try to get that lesson across to their respected people at the moment. But they're, like I said, they're on two different spectrums. What Roose Bolton means is not what Stannis means. And as we find out in the climax of the episode. But it's just interesting that we start the episode, more or less start it with Roose talking to Robb and letting him know, high road is hard to climb, and it's not how you win wars. And then all the way over at the end of the episode with Stannis going, clean's not the way to do it. Clean doesn't win wars. This is the way.
And this is the way. The idea, because the show, one of the first things here is this episode is Rob's victory in that great kind of fun sequence with the two Lannister soldiers in the rain. And did you hear something? And the wolf, and it's a budget saver. You don't need to show a big fight if you just got that great sequence. Great sequence.
It's still so cool. Still so cool.
It's a great shot of Rob too. I love that shot of him kind of over his horse's head as his wolf as Grey Wind goes in. But so to me, this plays on this into your theme here, Mark. That's a hero. We're rooting for Rob. It's a victory. We love that he's getting these victories. As he, the stuff he says with Jaime Lannister. Three victories don't make you a conqueror. But
better than 3 defeats.
Better than 3 defeats. Thank you. But to follow that up with, okay, this is what we want. We want him to win. We want the realities of what he just did, really, which we're aware of. But it's in his face. It's in our face, and the tough choices that follow.
It's the seeing it. It's the seeing it firsthand is what really sort of changes things. Like, oh, that's what war looks like. Yeah, no, not pretty. Don't like that.
Yeah, and look, Rob is. I mean, I guess I'd say right or good or better. We know we don't like Roose. I love Stannis, but a lot of people don't love Stannis. Rob doing maybe what you would think I'm putting quotations around that. Think Ned Stark would do. D.B. Weiss kind of says Rob's the Geneva Convention kind of guy in this scenario. So we'd say that's right, but is it right for this world?
And well, I think that's the ultimate lesson, isn't it? Especially when we know where this war goes. The beauty of hindsight, of course. But yeah, it's he's trying, I think, to be as honorable as he thinks his father would be. But as we know now, again, the hindsight thing, as we know now, the rebellion wasn't pretty. The rebellion wasn't nice. And Ned did things he's not proud of. And that's why he doesn't talk about certain things. And the only reason we're privy is because, someone in their third eye.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, exactly. You invoke the Tower of the Hand reveal later on to Bran. That's we can't wait to get to that moment when we review that episode. But Bran kind of going, wait a minute. I always heard Dad kicked ass. Dad would have died if not for Helen Reed. What? And history is written by the victors, all those kind of bumper sticker statements you can throw out there. But I think it does tie into this. That's why this kind of theme, the realities of and the true stories and the true way to the true path to victory might be a little messy.
And this is, Rob's first and ultimately only war. So, he's got no wartime experience. He doesn't know, like, the reality of war. He's being hit in the face with it as we are seeing it.
Let me ask you here in this moment, we would be remiss if we didn't spend some time with Talisa. I think I enjoy her as a character. I enjoy her presence. It is a dramatic change from the book. At this point, I didn't know that difference. You did, and a lot of people did. I think I still say one of the reasons I love season 2 so much is I think it's just a really good edit down of Clash of Kings, which doesn't mean I think Clash of Kings is a bad book, but you read Clash of Kings, particularly after watching the season first, you're like, oh, they just kind of made it kind of a simpler through line through a lot of things. I love the addition to Talisa. What say you, sir, about Talisa?
Hot take. Talisa is a way more interesting character than Jane Westerling. Sorry. I'm sorry out there, but that's just how I feel. And maybe a lot of that has to do with the fact that she's written a certain way, that Una Chaplin plays her with such heart. And I honestly feel like it's cool that we're bringing in, as they say, a foreigner, because she's from Volantis. Right. We're bringing in a foreigner into Westeros. She is knee deep in war, sawing off men's appendages. And I think I said that word right. I don't know.
You said fine, perfectly fine.
Yeah. And, of course, we get to learn more about her later and a little bit of her backstory. But I think that's just a way more interesting story point to change. No disrespect to Jane Westerling in the books at all, but ultimately, I don't know. I just felt more connected to Talisa.
Yeah, I mean, it sets up some real pain in season 3 with what's going to happen to her. We know that, but I mean, Rob not being a point of view character in the books is a choice George made. The show couldn't do that, and Rob's in front of you, and you can't just cut away every time Rob's going to do something. So I think you needed to see that love, anyways. He's breaking a vow, and I think it plays a little differently in the books. At least I did upon reading. Again, not here to dive deep into books or criticize the books. Hell, I love them, and George finished them. That's our statement here. George finished them. That's the world statement.
Please.
Yeah, Rob goes off, comes back, breaks his vow. All right, here we get to feel it, we get to live it, and it's I like the choice for Talisa and Una Chaplin. Hey, if you're in the Chaplin family of acting, I guess you're going to be good.
It's a prerequisite.
It has to be. So that's a great theme. Anything else you want? I have some here, but I'd love to hear what other things jumped out at you.
Just the one thing from that scene that ties into something that happens immediately after concerning what Roose Bolton says and is implied that he does.
Yeah.
And I mean that by Roose Bolton, the House Bolton is the flayed man. That's their sigil. They got the flayed man. And Roose lets Rob know, in my house, we say a naked man has few secrets, a flayed man, none.
Yeah.
Implying that, you peel the skin off somebody, they're going to tell you anything you want. And Rob's like, no, that's outlawed. Don't do that. And he's like, we don't do that in the North. Like, we're not in the North.
Yeah.
And that cuts to a scene like immediately afterwards when with Lancel Lannister giving us the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, talk about things that mean more. It's so funny because it's all right there in front of you with Roose kind of saying it. And I remember not being sure who Ramsay was initially, because again, I'm behind the books at the time. And my friend knew, and she just kept trying to like, think about it. Think about it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who it is. It's like you go back to this episode, like, oh yeah, Roose. Oh, yep. How did I miss that?
Yep.
How did I miss that? Which is why we're still even now going back into the themes.
But it's still, it's easy to see all that in hindsight. But at the time, you're just kind of like, no, I don't know. The show's still got me by holding me back just a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of fun there. So, okay. Here's some of the ones I'm working with here for themes and lessons from this episode. Some themes that jumped out to me. There is, you said the realities of war. I also got to say this whole season is Clash of Kings, as we know. And episode 1 does such a great job of setting up the players. Balon's a little off to the side, we know, but he's part of it. But you set up this early season. Here's the players, and here's how they rule. And this episode really goes into the wrong way to rule. We have Joffrey torturing Sansa, pointing the crossbow at her, Tyrion interrupting that. And then, interesting enough, Tyrion would hate to say he's like his father, but Tywin showing up at Harrenhal and interrupting the torture there to start the great stuff with him and Arya. But them knowing how to rule, and there's some more stuff there. But what do you think about this idea of a lot of things on display about how you rule being more important at times?
It means that I think with the demonstration, and it's awesome that you just pointed that out. I hadn't thought about that with Tywin doing pretty much the same thing Tyrion does. It just goes to show you.
They don't want to admit it. But they're related. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. But I mean, it just goes to show you rule with your brain, not your emotions, which is something Robert never did. Yeah. Obviously, the Mad King didn't rule with his brain, and then if you're privy to, Fire and Blood, there's all sorts of Targaryen kings that ruled through passion, not their wits, not their brains. And this is Tywin and Tyrion, as you say, they're more alike than they dare admit to one another. And this is a demonstration of that.
Yeah. And from this theme and lesson, the wrong way to rule, it flows down into two other kind of sub themes, if you will, that I see popping up in this episode. It's the art of the deal and the idea of compromise. We start getting some of it, and some of it works and some of it doesn't. And going back to like the wrong way to rule, it's addressed directly with Renly when in the great parlay scene, peaches or not, though we do have a peach in the episode, just not at the parlay. Renly says to Stannis, a man without friends is a man without power. And that cuts me. I'm a Stannis guy, as you all know, but I think I love Stannis more for the lessons I learned from him than just what he does. It's vitally important. Renly's right. He would have been a damn good king if he got the chance for all those reasons. And it's because he probably knew how to rule the people with the people, for the people, by the people. And Stannis was just going to, as honorable as he was at times. I understand people can take shots at Stannis over that, but that to me is really flows into the other things there. But your thoughts on Renly, the parlay, and what he's saying to Stannis?
I mean, Renly kind of owns forgive me, Ken. Renly kind of owns Stannis in that parlay a little bit, because he lays out the harsh truths. Like, you never wanted friends. A man without friends has no power. The whole realm denies your right as king, like from Dorne to the Wall. The what does he say? The old men dying deny it, and the unborn babies in the womb. It's just like, nobody wants you for their king, and he's not wrong. Nobody does. That's why nobody is all up in arms about Joffrey's illegitimacy, because they're like, well, if not Joffrey, then it's got to be Stannis. We don't want Stannis. And the people, they don't know Joffrey the way we, the audience, know Joffrey. They just see him as like, well, he's just a young king. He'll get his footing. And like, Stannis, no, fie on that. It's like, and I think a little part of Stannis even knows that when Renly's saying it to him, but he'll never show you. He'll never show his hand.
Yep. Look, our pal Eric Moreau, is the biggest Stannis fan alongside me, and I got to say, I think you're very right, Mark. And I think this parlay, it has the Stannis line of Stannis lines for me, which is the Iron Throne is mine by right, which is something I believe. Do I think he would have been the best king? No, but I'm fascinated by the prodigal son brother's idea. It's something I've been talking about all season of. He did everything that's asked for, and he didn't get what he felt he deserved. He didn't get respected. So now he wants to take it. But he knows, even at the end of the day, even if it is his right, Renly is just that speech, which ends in the "no one wants you for their king," which just Kath and Anthony is so good in this scene. I think that spurns Stannis to make even more decisions. The cleaner ways don't win the war, and the cleaner way is not going to get him on that throne, and he knows it. And that starts the slippery slope, I think, already with what's going on with Melisandre, and him breaking his marriage vow with her. He is now starting to slide because, to your point, Mark, he knows Renly's right.
Yeah, he does, and you may have something there with no one wants you for the king, and there's a quick shot to Stannis, in his poker face. But I think even behind those eyes, though, he's just going like, maybe that shadow baby's not on standby. In fact, I think tonight I will unleash, because he's just so like, just the anger behind the eyes, and he tries so hard with you know what, for the sake of the mother that bore us, it's all good. But then he ends it with like, you don't kneel, I'll destroy you. That's my favorite Stannis line. He's the only one that goes like, they'll bend the knee or I'll destroy them. Like it's not even so much that I'll put you down, I'll make you kneel, I'll destroy you.
I mean, I love this. I mean, the scene, it's full of great moments, and even Catelyn kind of coming in going, you're both being fools. This is not for the realm. But even Stannis going, I find it odd that you're on that side. Now you hear to chastise me, as he says it. Even his delivery of we shall see, Renly. Come the dawn, we shall see.
We shall see. That's actually one of my favorite moments, is the fact that he questions, like, why are you over there? Like, you're supposed to be here. And it's because of Ned that, he supported my claim. That's why I'm here, is because of what Ned did. You should be on my side, and instead you're over there with the boy, my brother, that just called me a ham. Which is a funny line.
Renly's humor is great. I think that probably pokes at him too. Like, my claim, your husband believed in my claim, but now you're not even supporting that claim. Like, it slipped right away from me. And I love now I'll get back to some of the lessons here and the themes, but Melisandre, I think that's one of the more chilling. The night is dark and full of terrors. Look to your sins, Lord Renly, for the night is dark and full of terror. Especially knowing what's coming. But she is a knight in ways, as she says, and she has some good threats. That one's one of the more. It's not fun and cute in that moment for me.
Oh no, nothing could. And you even see she has a moment where even she looks frustrated. Like, okay, I need to sick this shadow baby on you now. Like, she just has this eye roll moment when Renly's talking. Is like, don't make her mad right now, dude.
It might be heard away, I think frustrated, but also like, look, who knows the off-camera conversations she's having with Stannis after this parlay of like, look, I told you, this is the reality of the war you're in. We got to do what we got to do, because it ain't going to happen any other way.
I think there's a very long conversation. I wish we just could be flies on the, not wall, but I guess the tent.
The tent,
the tent, just to hear, because you're right. I think they did have a conversation, and I think she did sway her word magic in his ear and go like, you know what, This is the way we got to do this, because he obviously is not going to kneel. And, he's willing to believe. I'll tell you something, Ken. I was never a huge Stannis fan, but I understood his plight.
Brokenhearted.
This rewatch is changing me.
Okay.
Yeah, like the rewatch is slowly changing me, and I'm going, you know what? I think, despite what happens later and, his bad decisions, I think I'm on board Team Stannis, man. I think especially this season, he is just trying to claim what is his. He is trying to do this as peacefully as he can. Nobody is letting him do it peacefully, so he's got to take extreme measures. Yeah. He is our introduction to more crazy magic in the world that we had yet not seen. And it's just, everything about Stannis's arc, especially in season 2, which is why you love it so much. And I get it. I completely get it.
I get it. Look, and listening to like the extras, DB Weiss says plainly, goes, I think Stannis would have been a horrible king. I don't think that's wrong. However, I'm not just saying, hey, it's an easy win comparing Stannis to Joffrey, but I just think even to Robert, I think I'm so intrigued by Davos. And one of the other themes of this episode, the big question that actually comes out of one of my favorite quotes, jumping to the end of the episode. And this is what we do, folks. We follow the themes and we jump around. We're not doing scene by scene breakdowns here, but going to the end, when Davos is smuggling Melisandre aboard, she's having that on shore, I should say. And she's having that great conversation about, are you good? And are you a good man? And I'm mixed parts, which is, it's interesting because Game of Thrones, the whole series and the book series, of course, with George R. R. Martin, we absolutely play around with the gray areas. We love it. We love it. And the show does have that. You look at Jaime Lannister one way and he goes another way. But I think at the core, to me, it's very Jedi-like. It's why I do not like the term gray Jedi in Star Wars. You either go to the light or you go to the dark. And the pathway there might be full of choices and different decisions that you make along the way. But I think Melisandre is so right. And in this episode and this season that's talking about how to rule and the rulers on the field of play or the field of war, if an onion is black with rot, it's a rotten onion. A man is good or he is evil. And that's kind of weird coming from Melisandre, because a few seconds later, Davos says, strange that this Lord of Light asks you to work in the shadows, which means, she's not exactly saying the truth about herself, or is she? I don't know. Again, I think destiny takes you on a path to choose, and you can knock it either direction. But I really think at the end of the day, this show is commenting on what Melisandre is saying. I would argue Jaime is not a half-rotten onion. He's a good onion. He gets there, and he still maybe even loses it, but he's still a good person at the end of the day. But anyways, it's a deeper conversation, one that I just was really interested to see it highlighted here in a great way.
Yeah, I think the entire show is full of moments like that where we get a dialogue discussing, look, it's not everything is black and white. Not everything is going to be this or this based on what is predetermined. It is everything happens based on the choices we make. And, sometimes it's a, difficult choice if it's bad or it's good. And I love that. Yeah, of all people, Melisandre, you're right. That just is the one to have this sort of moral high ground, if you will.
Yeah. Well, look, it's I keep going back to the idea of Jon Snow is the boy who would be king, and that's this kind of trope, and it's a destiny thing, and then he goes against that. He chooses against that, but he remains good. Anyways, it's a fascinating conversation, but there's more stuff here, and we got to get to some great Daenerys stuff here. But the themes I have: the wrong way to rule, which leads into this idea of the art of the deal and compromise. A lot of deals and compromises made or not made. You learn from some maybe. I always say compromise gets a bad rap as a word. It feels like a loss when really it's a pathway forward. But when you compromise yourself, maybe that's where you start to lose, or you start to make the mistakes, and you try to make these deals. And the art of the deals on display. So we got Baelish and Renly, we got Baelish and Catelyn, we got Baelish and Marjorie. They're starting to work it out. Zoro Zohan Doxus starts making a deal, declaring Sumai. Tyrion knowing how to rule in a popular way, but also knowing how to rule in a back channel way with Lancel, cuts a deal with him. And even when he tells Sansa at the beginning, after he saves Sansa from that brutality there, and she plays the game, and he says, Sansa Stark, you may survive us yet. To me, it's her making a deal with the whole game itself, even though she's not fully control of her path right now. So
Yeah, I agree.
I'm jumping a lot onto the Scrabble board of themes here, Mark, I know, but anything grab you there? What do you think about these players trying to make deals here in the game?
I mean, it's kind of back to what you were talking about with foreshadowing. Obviously, foreshadowing, especially where Baelish is concerned. That's what Baelish does.
Yeah.
You know, he's not going to go in himself, with the one exception of holding the knife to Ned's throat. You know, I did warn you not to trust me.
Right.
That's it. Everything else is just scheming and you know, making the deal, compromising, laying little hints here and there, side deals. This is the beginning of where Catelyn's journey takes her. And was it a good thing or was it not to go against her son's wishes? You know, the king in the north. She basically committed treason. And, you know, but was that for the greater good? Was that for selfish reasons? It's easy to say selfish because she's thinking about her kids. She's thinking about her daughters.
Right.
But wouldn't we do the same in that situation if given the chance, if you saw no other way around it, despite what, you know, the political game, but despite, you know, the politics involved? I don't know, but you're right. Yeah. And then I like you brought up the invoking of Sumai.
Yeah.
Which is not a book thing. I had to go back and look for that. I said, did they do that in the book? No, they didn't. And that is an interesting thing. I wish we could spend more time on whatever the consequences be of invoking Sumai. But whatever, you're right. That's another deal. Deals abound, and of course, Tyrion being Tyrion.
Tyrion being Tyrion and trying to make a deal. And I think there's a bit of a, when I say compromise, sometimes, again, I think compromise should generally, just in real life, not just Game of Thrones, be considered a good thing and not, like I said, not always feel like a defeat. I understand sometimes it does and sometimes it is. But Tyrion, I think he tries to make a deal with Joffrey in a way, with Bronn kind of pointing out like, hey, I think he's just backed up, right? So the Roz and Daisy scene, which is, violent, comfortable, and brutal. And I think that's Tyrion trying, not to an olive branch, but just like trying to, like, let me make a little deal here with Joffrey and see if I can control him, see if I can get him on board. And it obviously goes awry. And that's part of, there's some compromises here that Rob, to me, is compromising. Now, I guess I'm using it I'm going against my own words here, Mark. I'm saying it compromised in a bad way. Go the Talisa thing, where it's right. There's no shock. There's no surprise. The moment you see Ona Chaplin, blood all over her face, cutting a leg, you're like, Rob's vows done for. So a lot of
just keeps lingering on her. It's just like, yep.
Summer breeze happens so fast. These compromises are leading to some problems and some downfalls even. And Stannis and Renly, unable to compromise at the parlay is a problem as well. So that's there too. We haven't got to Dany yet. And Mark, I want to get to the walls of Qarth, the greatest city that ever was.
We must.
I love this sequence, and I've read in the great book Fire Cannot Kill Dragon. I recommend you all check that out from James Hibbert, EW. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet, Mark, but
not yet. But you keep recommending it, so it's gonna happen soon.
I get no sales from it. No, I don't even know James Hibbert. I don't even know. I really love it because it's this oral history, and you get some great stuff, and some of it's previously published interviews and everything. I understand, but it's just the way it's framed. Emilia Clarke. Saying Dany in season 2 was an odd play for her. And Emilia Clarke personally was coming off of the brain injury that she had suffered, that she had kept secret for so long. It was a different season. She was just getting back to that. But that Dany and Qarth, I'm not saying, I don't want to put words in her mouth of just it wasn't her favorite. Just she had a little trouble playing her, finding the way to play Dany. But I got to say, she does a great job because I love a lot of the things Dany goes through in season 2, and it begins, to me, really picks up right here at the walls of Qarth. I just want to get your overall thoughts. Not even worried about the book version versus show version, but Qarth and Dany and her path that begins right here. What do you think about it?
she has found herself back in the dire straits. And even so, growing up on the run, her dire straits weren't, let's say, that dire, because, they had Magister Illyrio looking after her and her brother. And so
he was nice to her. Her brother was totally nice, right?
Well, anyway, we'll gloss over that. But the point is, she as far as her surroundings, now she's gotten a taste of being a queen, or Khaleesi, whatever you want to call it. She has gained some power that she's never had before, and now we find her just slumming through the red waste of what's left of the Khalazar that joined her, and here she is at this gate, told that she's going to be welcome in based on the fact that she is a Targaryen. And what's that? You have dragons? The hell you say? Let's see those dragons. And she just, I can understand her frustration. But I think this is also a test in her mettle, I guess you want to say. Just they're testing her because they want to know. I guess they want to see where she sizes up as not a woman per se, but just as an individual, because they've heard stories. She's the wife of a cow. She's a Targaryen. Now she's got dragons. Like, okay, what kind of person are we dealing with here? And she's got to, and they're not being nice. They're not holding any, the Spice King anyway, is not holding back punches. He's demeaning. He's very condescending, like in the, and he has a punchable face. It's so punchable.
I got to tell you, well, we always talk about the episode stars, the actors who we just want to highlight. Gethin Anthony for me is Renly, and this episode's great. But Nicholas Blaine is the spice trader, a humble trader of spices. He's everything you just described, and he's so great. I love every scene he's in. Grace and I were watching it, and she's the same thing. She's like, I hate this guy. I'm like, I know, and it's the point, and I love it. He's so good.
Exactly.
And
he really is.
His cadence and the way he speaks, everything is so great. And there's some truth. I'm not saying he's a good man based on Melisandre's thing, but to follow, build on what you're saying here, actually, I think it's great, Mark. Dany obviously ends season 2 with some problems. The death of Khal Drogo, a deal gone wrong there with Mirri Maz Duur, and some valuable lessons there. But she does end, to me, it is, if it's not an actual literal position of power, it's a feeling of power and a feeling of destiny. And I'm on this. And if you listen to me on Force Center, you're probably tired of me talking about this. If you listen to me here in Game of Thrones, you're probably tired of me talking about it here on Casterly Talk. I think destiny is a word that gets tossed around, and a word that is almost intentionally misunderstood by the stories. That this idea that you are, again, the boy who would be king or the girl who would be queen, and then that's the end of the journey. You got it. Everything from here, that is your destiny, and it's going to happen. You have to make these choices. Dany walks into the fire, comes out with the dragons. She is who she felt she was, the mother of dragons, the unburnt. It's amazing. She is everything she feels she is. And now she has to go actually deal with that in the real world. And here is she's on death's door, literally. They're saved here. And you got the spice trader just being like, yeah, oh, cool. You're child of destiny. That's great. Not in my city. Bye-bye.
It's like, do you have dragons or not? I don't, we're skeptical. I don't think you're a liar. It's like, oh, geez.
But as I do not know you. And so that to me is one of the big lessons for Dany and for us as we're watching her, because Dany's a character I root for up until the very end. And I think that's part of the point of what the story is around Dany. And Dany, to me, I wrote down that she runs into the opposition for what she really believes that she is. And again, in some ways, I think she is that. But you have to then choose what to do with that destiny or that power.
Right.
And she is literally up against the wall here. And it's a first big, valuable lesson. Well, I'm going to say Khal Drogo, Mirri Maz Duur is her first big value.
That's a real big one.
This is a new lesson for really what's going forward with Dany. All that brought her to this point,
Yeah, and look, the name of the show is Game of Thrones, and we follow these characters playing the game. Dany never once has played it, and when she has tried to play it, it does not work because she is not that's not her game. Her game, she's a conqueror. I mean, she gets called that time and time again throughout the show. In this moment, we get to see her. Had she just even Ser Jorah, your boy Ser Jorah Mormont, he even says, "Please be careful," because he knows she's gonna blow up. He knows she's gonna do something wrong, and that could be they could be added to the Garden of Bones. Right. But that in that moment of meeting the 13, she could have phrased and said a whole bunch of different things. She could have played the game, their game, and they would have welcomed her in with open arms, and no one would have been the wiser, whatever. Yeah. She didn't do that. She refused to do that. And yeah, she got inside anyway, but through other circumstances. But the point is, in that moment, she demonstrates she is not going to play the game the way everyone else does. She's going to do it this way. She's going to take what she wants with fire and blood. She even threatens to, what does she say? Burn cities? and it's like,
burn cities to the ground. Amelia Clark is so great. I want to jump in here because you're saying some great stuff. I always say, along the way in season 1, Dany is put into positions where she cannot control what's going on, including the rape on her marriage night, and she tries to fight up against that. She with her brother, and her being under the thumb of her brother's destiny, and I think Dany constantly, particularly in season 1, wants to take control of herself. It's powerful, which is why so many people got pulled in to the Daenerys Targaryen character as portrayed on the show, and in the books as well, but as portrayed on the show, as you should. There's great inspiration to take from it, and nothing that happens in the show going forward should take away any inspiration you feel from Dany, is what I say all the time. But to move that forward, you're talking about things that I think we're talking about in this episode. The wrong way to rule, the art of the deal, compromise. She does get into Karth, but she now is back in a position where she's under the thumb of someone else. She has to compromise. Again, maybe using it in a bad. Maybe I gotta think of another word. I'm trying to win back. Compromise is a good thing, but maybe it's a real world conversation. But she Zara Zohan Doxus is now in control of the situation, and we, you and I, the audience, we are like, oh, we like this guy. We like this guy. He's standing up for our girl, and we really love it. And look what happens. And she, I think, at the end of this season, jumping ahead, is now like, I'm never letting that happen. I fire and blood. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. It's I mean, she right away, I think we shouldn't trust Zara Zohan Doxos. I mean, obviously we know now, like, of course not. But even in that moment though, it's like he just willingly cuts his hand open, and invoking a sumai, a blood oath. He's like, boom, it's be it on my head. Yeah, which is interesting because be it on his head. It's his fault. She got inside. It's his fault. The 13, bad things happened to them. So I found that one really, really interesting. But even right away, I go, this shady individual. Even as I'm reading the book, going like, I don't know who this guy is, but I don't know if I like him.
And even though the ending plays out a little differently in the book, he's on the hook for things he's done here. So we'll start transitioning into the foreshadowing, the things we love more as we wrap up the thing. But I'm fascinated by Dany in Karth. And from probably one of the reasons I do love this season, it is a Dany that can't get her way. I don't mean that in like she's a pouting Veruca Salt type. I don't mean that, but she's constantly like, I have dragons. I have my name. I have destiny behind me, and mostly the spice trader, but everyone else just kind of like, yeah, sure, great, cool, not here, or Piat Pri and all everything that's going on, and she to me emerges from Karth stronger, and maybe that's why, as a fan of Dany, I do like the Karth arc, because she learns valuable, and she doesn't even tell we're jumping ahead, but she tells Zara that
Thank
you for the nice lesson.
It's in there. but I mean, to your point though, she I had a point there. Whoops, lost it. But there you go. But yes, everything you say, I echo.
It's a good points being lost is just a sign of podcasting when you talk so much. Let's move into some foreshadowing. We talked a lot about it here. We talked about Roose Bolton not happy with the prisoners, and he's one of Rob's bannermen, and I think we are just even after the death of Ned Stark, you're still watching the show with that classic sense of, oh, he's on our team. We like this guy. But the answer is right in front of you with Roose, right from the start.
Mhm.
You should have been like, maybe some people were, but you should have been like, nah, something off with that cat, you know?
Did he just say flaying men? Like, what's happening? And if you're not paying attention, you don't even see his sigil all that much. The flayed man sigil is not very prominent until later.
Yep.
But had you seen that right away, you go like, ooh, what's this dude's problem?
Well, not too long after this, he's going to be telling Rob, let me send my bastard up to Winterfell. So there you go. So that means more to me. I also have, the Roz scene, the Roz and Daisy scene. We obviously means more now with how Roz dies, but also just this. I consider this just Joffrey is past the breaking point here. We already kind of know, we already don't like him, but Tyrion comes back in town, and you get a sense, early on, especially at the name day ceremony, he's got Joffrey. He can control Joffrey, and at the beginning of this episode, he stops Joffrey from torturing Sansa. So Tyrion's got it. And this play does not work for Tyrion, and Joffrey is, to me, on the path that there's no coming back now.
It's kind of like what we talked about with Daenerys and how she, the word of the day or the word of the evening is compromise. She does not until it's made for her. Joffrey does not compromise. And we get the best line. I think it's one of the lines I love in the show, but also just in life from Bronn. Sometimes there's just no cure for being a cunt.
It's so great. It's so great. Jerome Flynn, so good. I got a couple more, but here, what are some of your other moments, some foreshadowing or just things that just mean more upon rewatch, even the sweet sentimental things?
I mean, we get this is our first glimpse into Harrenhal, the legendary Harrenhal, the stronghold that is still standing and still smoking from the dragon fire of so many years ago.
Yep.
And this is the first time, and I realized we spend a lot of time in Harrenhal throughout the seasons 2 and 3, and I think just 2 and 3, but there's a lot. There's a lot happening in Harrenhal. So much so that there were times where I was thinking, are we ever going to change locations here? It was like, are they going to get out of this castle? And then eventually they do. But then we go back to it, and like, okay, we're just gonna just stay with this rotting fold.
I love so much the stuff in Harrenhal, but every time this episode of season 2 rolls around on any rewatch I do, I'm like, oh God, it's going to get dark and drab. We are going to Harrenhal. I forgot about that. But again, I love some of the stuff, the Tywin Arya stuff, some of my favorite in the show. We can't wait to get to that.
That's the setup for what will be the Arya and Tywin stuff, which again, you guys, not in the books. I love screaming that at people because they're just like, they have their comments. There's that, and I still, at the very beginning, the beginning of the legend of the young wolf, Rob, and they say he can turn into a dire wolf, and we kind of get a glimpse of sending Grey Wind into the front lines to take out the guards and the knight, whatever. We get a moment with Lancel screaming at Sansa about it's like, your brother brought on like 100 wolves and killed 1,000 of our men, and then they were eating the flesh off of the dead bodies, which to me said, okay, Roose went ahead and flayed people anyway. That's what that's all about.
Yeah, well, okay, yes, you're absolutely right. I've always thought that too, but I love by that scene where Lannister's going off, and there's like the ladies at court going like, oh, and these big extra faces. No, I think that's great. Yeah, and I think it does kind of when you sync up the pieces, like, oh, Roose just flaying people like it don't matter. Yeah.
And as an enthusiast of House Baratheon, I gotta say this one is pretty Baratheon heavy.
Yeah.
And it's sadly, or maybe not sadly, I don't know, the only time we get Stannis and Renly kind of in the same room having a chit chat. After this, not so much, but I like that. More Baratheons, the better.
I absolutely agree with that. I like House Baratheon is a troubled house, but I like all the characters inside there. I really do. Justice for King Robert. We tried over here, even though, made some mistakes. My love of Stannis confuses and confounds many people here. One of the ones I want to talk about here, I want to get your thoughts on this. Baelish and Kat, and we see him show up and kind of give her an offer that's to her, not to Rob, because he knows
Mm.
Rob wouldn't do this. He knows it is something that Catelyn would go for, Jamie for the girls, and it comes from Tyrion, but Baelish knows how to get it across. But what I love about this, and we can talk about what that means too, but Baelish, particularly in the stuff we've seen so far, him and Renly in this episode, and the great Marjorie, and what I think is the best Marjorie dress around, the Queen of Playing Cards dress, I call it.
Yeah.
There's all that stuff, and he's Baelish. He's Baelish through and through. This is one of the first times you see him lose control around Cat. He's pleading, he's begging, he really has feelings for her, really. And season one, there's might be little moments, I get it, but he kind of breaks kayfabe, if you will, if you're a wrestling fan. The facade comes down, and to me, this foreshadows directly or indirectly, doesn't matter. It just foreshadows his eventual undoing, because he couldn't, with some of the stuff with Sansa and Arya, he just couldn't factor in, and he lost control, maybe some of his feelings for Sansa, or just the situation overall.
He literally reverts back to Littlefinger Peter that Catelyn used to know so many years ago. He even has that moment where he tries. He said, "It seems like fate's giving us a second chance," and he shoots his shot, and she pulls a dagger on him. So lesson learned there, bro. But he makes this deal with Catelyn because he knows he can sway her. He's done it before. He did it, and that's her famous line in that is he's like a little brother to me, Ned. He would never betray my trust. And I'm just like, oh, come on.
Yep. I owe a lot of apologies to Catelyn Stark as a character, but I still look at that moment and go, Cat.
Wise up, yeah.
Hey, that's what it is. So anyways, I love that moment there. I have a couple other ones. Arya adding Polliver to the list, and Arya just she got the list from Yoren.
I never noticed that before until this rewatch, that like in that moment she adds Polliver to the list, like and the Mountain. I was like, aha, gotcha.
What means more now, going back to Zaro for a second, but just him sponsoring Dany in. I mentioned it, but I just this idea of like, cool, we've got another friend for Dany. And we fell for it. And the final one, I don't want to hear some more from you. Sorry, I'm monologuing here, but you mentioned it already, but I wanted to highlight Jorah Mormont, Khaleesi, please be careful. She's not even speaking a word. He's tuned in. He knows what she's about to do, and what she's about to say. And I look along the way of the advisors, the people around Dany that are keeping her from her worst tendencies. And we all have them. And I think makes Dany an even more interesting and important character. She's not perfect, and she has choices, and who you have around you is key. It is vital.
Yeah.
And Jorah is one of those, and he makes some mistakes for sure, but he knows her in this moment. He gets it, and I think that factors in going forward. Watching it now has a lot more meaning to me, of just like, man, you start losing people like him and Missandei and Barristan Selmy. You and I were talking. We're not there yet at season 5, episode 3, but I just watched that episode this week with Grace. We're doing kind of our own rewatch. We got ahead of Casterly Talk. I kind of, as much as I've seen that episode, Mark, season 5, episode 3, Barristan Selmy literally tells Dany everything that's going to happen to her, everything that is happening to her, when he tells her the truth about her father.
Yeah.
The mistakes, everything he did, and every time he felt more power, and he felt it was justice. And it's there. And when you start, the support system starts getting pulled away from Dany, and no one is there to help curb her. And then factor in I always, that there is some justifications for some of Dany's beliefs. And also she does things for good. Freeing the slaves, very good thing, whether she did it with her bad behaviors or not. So it's deliciously and tragically complicated. But I take all of that, Mark, and I'll pitch it back to you here, but I take all that back and I watch this moment again, and it kind of broke my heart. Just having someone next to her who's like, I know what you're about to do, even though you're going to do it. I'm going to try to get you to work past that and rule it a different way.
It makes me feel like when he says, please be careful, I wonder if in his mind he's thinking, I'm going to have to fight my way out of this, and I'm in a desert. It's just like, because she is going to say something really wrong, and those guards are going to come after us, and there's too many. And not to mention, they don't know what's behind the doors. There could be more. But yeah, Jorah, I mean, look, hopelessly romantic Jorah Mormont, Sir Jorah Mormont. He just, I think he legitimately, and it shows in his face. I mean, obviously we know it because he has a diatribe about it, but I mean, even in his face, he believes and loves her so much that even if the trouble she's about to get them all into right then and there, he's willing to just to fight and die for the sake of her cause, because I think he just legitimately believes she will be what the realm needs. Also, selfishly, he wants to be the one beside her when she does it. But yeah, but you're right. And also he's tired. He's worn out. He's just like, we just trekked 3 days through the red waste to get here, and we're about to die because you're going to say something really bad. And he's just like, not like this. Not like this.
Yeah. They were dead. Unless Zaro steps forward, they're dead, which again is why we're probably
the only time Jorah was thankful for Zara so Doxos for anything.
He's clued in early on there. That inherent jealousy in Jorah about Daddy, it's not wrong. And we'll get to some, but I think it's some great stuff with Quaithe. Even though I know some people feel, even mentioned on her episode, this a lot of Quaithe stuff, maybe not maybe left on the table on the show, but I think it's a great use of the character in the show too.
I agree so hard.
Yeah. Though, but I can't wait for more about Quaithe in the books. All right, favorite moments, lines, scenes. What do you got? Just you can run through things that you just love about this episode. And I think there's a lot of great lines.
Do you know what? Do you remember the lady prisoner that's talking about? Yeah, there went my son, and a couple of days ago, my sister. Why does that woman look like Blythe Danner?
She does look like Blythe Danner.
So much so that I had to check IMDb to go, did Blythe Danner have a cameo in Game of Thrones? She does not, but that is a hell of a doppelganger, and it just cracks me up when I see her, which is awful because that's a very dramatic scene this poor woman's in. I'm just like, that's Blythe Danner.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This is this is one of the few episodes. No Jon Snow. Yeah, Jon Snow is nowhere to be found. We don't even go to Winterfell or North of the Wall in this episode.
Yeah.
Which is a rare thing. And then of course my favorite line of the show, or at least in the episode, there's no cure for being a cunt.
Yeah. Great one.
And then of course we can't look past the climax of the episode, the moment that this was one of those things. After I read it in A Clash of Kings, I said, how are they even going to do this? I don't see it happening. And sure enough, Shadow Monster, there you are. And just the look of devastating horror on Sir Davos Seaworth, just witnessing, he can't speak. He can't go anywhere except slump to the ground because what is this that I'm seeing here? All of those, and as we talked about, the writing is just spectacular in this episode.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we talked a lot about what Melisandre was talking about while being rowed to shore, which I think is really key at the heart of the show's themes. But Demon Baby Shadow Monster left an impression on a lot of people. Still does.
Oh yeah.
I do want to ask you about that. It is one of the things we know that the show, the story, even the books, it is about magic slowly returning, and magic is in far off places. It's deep in the north, it's far east, and here comes Melisandre from a different religion to this land, and it's front and center. And this was the dragons at the end of season 1. The White Walkers already we've seen at Craster's Keep, but even going back to the cold open of season 1, episode 1, they're there. But to me, this is the first time you got some magic right on display. We've seen Melisandre with Maester Crescent and drinking the poison as he dies, but this is in your face. What did you think about magic after reading it and seeing it here? Did you feel it worked for you? And how did you feel as a reader and a viewer of like, oh, we got some fantasy?
Oh, both. I remember reading it and I put the book down and went, huh, okay. And I said, I'm gonna have to process that one. And then of course, what the reason for that was. And so I was excited. I said, if they don't put the Shadow Baby in this thing, like, I feel like that would be a complete loss, but I don't know how they're going to pull that off. And I think They did, because I'm legitimately watching this episode, going back to when it first aired, thinking this is, if they're going through with this is going to be weird and creepy and awesome. And it was weird, creepy, and awesome. So much so that people that were starting to watch the show hit me up. They're going, "What is going on with this show?" I said, "Oh, you're not ready. You're not ready for what comes later."
A lot of reactions like that for me. And look, Carice Van Houten is so great in this role, but here she is as an actor, bearing it all. She does have the prosthetic stomach there, but she's on a real cave with some walls. It's a practical set. She bared it all. Liam Cunningham's great, but she commits. And I got to admit, to kind of when I was watching the first time, I started to, the show doesn't shy away from sex, certainly, for better or worse. And so when she's kind of telling Davos, "Oh, you like your wife? Oh, you're going to see me naked," I was like, well, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. And so when she kind of disrobes, I got to tell you, my mind and a little bit of it, I guess, is dumb male thinking we're gonna get a sex scene. No, I was just like, okay, is she also gonna have sex with? No, what is happening? And it just threw me for such a loop that it freaked me out. I didn't know what to expect, and therefore I loved it. It was something unexpected for me, and a lesson learned for me. Get your mind out of the gutter, and there's dark magic at play is what I had to learn.
When there's dark magic, all bets are off. Assume nothing.
All bets are off there. We talked about some of my favorite quotes around Stannis and Renly, but we also got the great one of the first fewer moments from Stannis that pop up a lot. Fewer. And I love that there too. So I mentioned some of those. You mentioned Harrenhal, Arya unveiling the list. Renly with a peach is another one that works for me. I love Sir Meryn Trant and Tyrion going at it, which will hurt Tyrion later on in the trial. But just Bronn, the next time Sir Meryn speaks, kill him. See, that's a threat. I love that sequence.
See the difference? Yeah. See the difference? Oh yeah, no, it's great. Just any time Sir Meryn Trant gets owned in any way, it's a win.
And up until his death, he gets owned a lot, thankfully.
Oh, that death though.
Yeah. Any other favorite moments, lines, and scenes from you, Mark?
This, I believe, is the first episode we are reintroduced to the Mountain, but it's the Mountain 2, as I call him. Ian White, actor Ian White, or White, however Welsh he pronounces that. Big man who would later come back, not as the Mountain, but as One, the giant, to assist in the Battle of the Bastards. But this was the introduction of the second Mountain, which I thought was like, oh, okay, interesting.
It's so interesting. Yeah, because you're right. He won one, and then he's some White Walkers in season 1 and 2. I am looking at it there. And in season 8 too. Yeah, you're so right. I didn't know. I knew he played a lot of different characters. Anyways, not to sidetrack. He's great. He's 7'1". He definitely has the presence, but it just didn't work for me as the Mountain here. And I'm happy with the recast. I don't know the whole story on the first actor. Was it Connie? Oh gosh, what's his name?
Conan. Conan something.
Yeah, apologize on that there, but I think they end up in a good spot with him. With the actor Conan Stevens. There you go. I said Connie. Yes. Conan wins.
His friends call him Connie. It's cool.
It was a Half-War Julius Bjornsson is great. He's also infinitely more younger than the other performers, but it works what they needed to do. So nothing against Ian White. I think he had a good presence, but it just I remember. I don't know about you, but if you had the book in you didn't know. I actually did not pick up on it was the Mountain upon my first viewing until like this episode. Or maybe later on where he's sitting at the table, the Tywin.
Right? Yeah, he's that big lurker at the table. Yeah.
They recast it. Well, different presence, but anyways, nothing against Ian White there, and he's great as one. So.
Yeah, I wonder if they did that because maybe his presence as just a looming figure wasn't as intimidating as they would have liked. Yeah. Whereas Conan Stevens and Hafthor, however you pronounce his name, are just muscle bound dudes, but he gets Ian White gets more dialogue than the other mountains do. So I wonder if that had something to do with it.
It very well. Yeah, I forget the entire story on the Conan Stevens switch, but he's hulking too. Ian White is slender, and the slender just wouldn't work for me as much, especially against Rory McCann, no small guy himself. What about 6'4", 6'5"? So I think they end up in a good place. They knew where they needed to get. He needed to be otherworldly. The Red Viper stuff. So, anyways, but he's here. He's here there. So. Any other moments and scenes here as we start to wrap up the look here at episode 4?
I mean, I think we nailed it. I think we nailed all of it.
We did indeed. We nailed it. Now, a lot of great stuff. This is a very solid episode. The parlay scene, the stuff with Tyrion, the dialogue with Davos and Stannis, Davos and Melisandre. I think it's great. And then and I think Danny does a lot of "Where are my dragons" and screaming and stuff this entire season, but it really kicks up. I'm intrigued by her stuff here because she's learning valuable lessons, a child of destiny, and I love all that stuff. So this is some of my favorite Danny stuff, even though it's not her in a position of power. So maybe I'm alone there on a city in the Garden of Bones, but I do like it.
It's her gradual. She's taken the small baby steps, if you will. She's taken her small gradual baby steps to get into the position to where she needs to be when we find her in season 3, when she, takes off to Yunkai and stuff. And so, I mean, I think this, even though it's a more subtle season for Danny in a way, it's necessary. And as you say, she learns incredibly valuable lessons from her entire trip in Karth. And this episode is just full of little intricate movements. A lot of moving pieces are happening in this episode, as well as foreboding and foreshadowing, a little bit of that. And just to let you know that, hey, things are going to get real bad, and pay very close attention because we're laying it out there right in front of you. So just keep eyes open. Yeah, it's just, in the end, this is, I will say, one of my favorite episodes. So thank you to all who made it there. I've said some of my episode stars, Gethin Anthony as Renly. Had a short run on the show, really, but Renly is memorable, and I think this is a great, that parlay scene. I know the book readers, no peaches, got him upset. I totally understand, but I think this worked. And again, I mentioned it, but Nicholas Blaine is the Spice Trader. Again, he's so good in being so bad. So any episode stars for you, sir? Yeah. I mean, it's hard not to say him. But of course, old Renly, and I'll be honest. Catelyn has this great moment with just of no dialogue, nothing, when she receives the bones from Baelish, and I am completely blanking on her name right now. I'm sorry.
Michelle Fairley.
Michelle Fairley. Thank you. She says more on her face, and even when she just closes the box back up after seeing Ned's bones, and there's just the look on her face tells a story all on its own. And she's just a phenomenal actress as it is, but just in that moment during this rewatch, I went, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, they even talk about it. Always, you run through Wikipedia or Song of Ice and Fire Wikipedias and wiki pages. And many commenters praise the acting in this episode, highlighting Michelle Fairley in the scene where Catelyn receives her late husband's bones. Absolutely great.
There you go.
She's so great. In this episode, I said up top, this won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Art Direction for a single camera series, this particular episode. And I think that is all part of what made the show work. Is it wasn't just the great acting, directing, and writing. It was also how it looked, how it felt, how it was shot. Going to one of the first points you made in this episode, Mark. So
exactly, yeah.
Oh man, Mark, this was great to have you on. Long overdue. It's good to have you here. Tell everybody not just where they can find you, but what you're working on over there with the Feeding the Monster Boys and anything else you got going on.
Yeah, the Feeding the Monster podcast feed. Me and a few other very interesting characters. We do our thing. I believe at the time of this recording is dropped, we will have done our holiday show, aka season finale, wrapping up our season so we can get back to you fresh from the start next year. And so you can find us there at 5TM Pod on Twitter, and then find me at Mark the Bat on Twitter and Instagram.
Mark the bot. Absolutely, folks. Do that. You can follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to kennapzok.com. And we are in the process. I'll let you all know soon, but we're in the process of Casterly Talk. We'll have its own YouTube channel, moving it off the Ken Napzok page to its own thing, which means we'll be rebuilding it to monetize it and all those kind of things, but more coming there as well. So look forward to that. Other than that, that is it. Wow, we are on to a great episode next week. Next episode looking at the ghost of Harrenhal. We got it. Tywin and Arya sitting down, having a little snack. We'll see you next week on Casterly Talk.